understanding that when we think about our health and well-being, it's really looking at the whole person and all aspects of our health and well-being. And then to make that happen is the piece of the puzzle, which is the schedule, routines, habits, and rituals, so that this is just our lifestyle. This is just what we are doing to support our overall health and well-being.
Menopause has long been shrouded in secrecy, leaving many clueless, ashamed, and embarrassed to seek and extend support for one of the most natural transitions and rite of passage. Well, the spirit and mood have changed. People are surrendering to curiosity, knowledge, and empowerment. In this podcast, I'll share my own experiences and point of view, peek into the lifestyle and self-care practices of people experiencing menopause, and tap experts for their take on the menopausal phase. This is for you if you are one of the millions of people in the menopausal phase or want to support them. I'm Dixie Lincoln Nichols, health and well-being educator and wellness founder. This is the Pause Pod.
Michelle Dwyer is a holistic health coach and certified nutrition consultant living in Oakland, California. Her role is to guide her clients on their journeys toward greater wellness, energy, and vibrancy through a holistic approach. By looking at all aspects of health, body, mind, and spirit, she empowers clients to create and maintain a lifestyle that nourishes the person through quality foods, spiritual connections with self and others, moving the body, and self-love. Michelle has a Master of Science degree in Health and Nutrition Education and is board certified in Holistic Nutrition by the National Association of Nutrition Professionals. She's the founder of Whole Life Nourishment for Changemakers, a mind-body-spirit program that addresses the whole health of progressive leaders and visionaries. Michelle, thank you so much for coming on to the Pause Pod to share with me today and to share with the listeners. I appreciate it. Welcome.
Thank you. It's an honor and a pleasure. I can't wait to dive in.
Yes. So let's dive right in. Before I start with all the meat and the juicy information that you have for us, that I know you have for us, let's start with getting to know you a bit. Share with us a bit of backstory in terms of how you became a coach, your journey, and what led you to this particular point in your life.
Oh, I love it. I love sharing my story. So thank you for letting me share it. So we have a similar backstory. I was in education for about 15 years. I was a high school English teacher. And the short version is I got sick. I know the exact day that I got sick. I got a cough and a cold that would not go away. I had laryngitis. I had chronic sinus infections. I'm going to my regular doctor and they're telling me I'm fine. And I'm saying, no, I can't walk up the stairs. I can't do the things that I normally could do all the time. And so I was still teaching, and I have to tell you, teaching with upper respiratory issues is I mean, it was really hard. Luckily I was part-time, so I was basically teaching and then crashing, teaching and then crashing, and it was quite the nightmare. So in that journey, what I discovered is that I'd always cared about my health and well-being. It had always been something that I had thought about. And I discovered that I needed to know so much more about my own body. And in that journey, on the other side of it, when I was well again, when I had rebalanced my immune system and my digestive health and all the different pieces, it there was a little ad that popped up in my email and it said, do you want to transform people's lives through holistic nutrition? And I thought, I do want to transform people's lives through holistic nutrition. So that opened up this whole beautiful world to me. And by the end of that year, I had left my teaching position. I was working on my master's degree full time, and I started my practice. So 11 years ago is when I officially launched my practice as a holistic health coach and nutrition consultant. And it's such an honor. It's such a joy. I'm all about empowerment, and I know, the pain of my own journey really allows me to really meet my clients where they're at, right? And really understand their frustrations and their challenges, and because I've been there and I get it.
Right, right. Been there, right. I love that. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that you did to come out on the other side. This was prior to diving into health coaching and getting your certificate and finishing up your master's degree. What are some of the things that brought you healing?
Yeah, so it was working with a holistic practitioner. That was a big part of my own journey. It was also discovering the foods that worked for my body. And as you and I both know, there's a wealth of information out there, and yet it also feels like a fire hose of information. And when you're sick and tired and overwhelmed and scared, um, it's it's really challenging. And so for me, part of my health journey was finding somebody that I really trusted, who was really looking at me as a whole person, who was understanding all aspects of my health and well-being. And so I'm just so grateful that she was part of my journey. And I also realized in that process, there were things, as amazing as she was, there were there was a person that I needed to be my support, to be my cheerleader, to be my ongoing person. Like, I got you. I got you. And so for me on the other side of all of this, like, that's a big part of what I want to be. Like, that's what I'm there for my clients, is saying, like, we will figure this out together. I'm here to cheerlead. I'm here to support. I'm here to ask the good questions. I'm here to help you be an advocate for your health and well-being. And so, yeah, so that was a big part of it. So for me, it was really healing my gut. It was really about restoring my immune system. It was about clearing out some foods that were causing inflammation in my body. Part of it, Dixie, that's such a big part of my transformation. I mentioned that I had a chronic cough. I was getting chronic sinus infections, laryngitis. I mean, I wasn't sleeping because my cough was so awful. And I'd had asthma ever since I was a teenager. I suspect it came on, like, I always associated it with coming on with puberty, because all of a sudden I had asthma at the age of 13 that I'd never had a problem before. And I just thought, I have asthma. Even though I'd asked doctors for years, like, how do I get off all these medications? And how can I approach my lung health differently? And for me, one of the triggers was dairy, and that's not everybody's trigger, but that was a trigger for me. And so, clearing out the dairy and restoring my gut and immune health, I went into my dance class and I thought, you know what? I'm going to just put my inhaler down next to my water bottle. I'm not going to take it this time. And for the first time, I think I was in like 20 plus years, almost 30 years, I didn't need my inhaler. I didn't have an asthma attack. And that was, gosh, 12 or 13 years ago. And so it's amazing to me on a day-to-day basis, how much on this, like, very, this one measure of my health and well-being, how radical that health transformation was. And so I'm just so grateful to my lungs. I'm so grateful to myself for listening to my own body, and yeah, and just trusting in the process.
Yeah.
So
That's incredible. So you've not had an issue with flare ups from asthma attacks for 11 or 12 years.
yeah, it's been amazing. I still carry my inhaler with me because that habit dies, like, just in case. But yeah, I actually had to ask my doctor for a new prescription because it had lapsed, because it had been years since
Expired.
I had gotten a new one. So to me, that was like an amazing, amazing sign. And yeah, it just, especially with all of us thinking about our lung health and immune health even more deeply in the last 4 years. I'm just so grateful. My lungs feel so much stronger. I'm always keeping an eye on them. I know it's the area from my body that is kind of what I call an indicator light, right? So
Mm.
everyone's kind of got their thing. And I mean, literally, I would take my inhaler every day because it was exercise induced and I was moving my body every day. And so to not take this medication, truly, I mean, not to sound exaggerating, but it was really revolutionary, and is just, to me, such again, a wonderful sign of the way that the food, nutrition, digestive health, immune health can really transform our day-to-day lives.
Right. Yeah, that's incredible, but such an amazing feat because a lot of times people hear that food is medicine, but you're living proof that food is indeed medicine, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about menopause and how that story weaves into your current work as a health and wellness coach. Or were you perimenopausal before you became a health and wellness coach, or were you perimenopausal after you became a health and wellness coach? Just kind of like walk us through your journey and how it began.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So I am about to turn 50. I am super excited about that. I am still in what I call riding the perimenopausal wave. So I still get my regular period, but I know enough, right, in terms of all the knowledge building that I've done for myself and for my clients to know I can see on the periphery these shifts and changes that are happening in my body. And so I'm really listening. And as you and I both know, the list of those symptoms is not just hot flashes, right? It's all these other factors that can start to affect our health and well-being. So my personal journey is well, the thing that I always like to mention is that my mother's story, which is that she passed away from breast cancer at the age of 48 and a half. And so she went into menopause because of her cancer treatment around the age of 45. So my sister and I, even though I know bodies are different and even a mother and a daughter might have very different menopausal journeys, we know nothing about my mother's menopausal journey because it was affected by the breast cancer and because she died so young. So for me, even though I want to navigate perimenopause and menopause very thoughtfully and with knowledge and information, I'm also, it feels like a great honor to me. To be 50 is a privilege. To every year that I get to be older is a privilege that my mother didn't have. And so even if I might be like, oh, this is challenging or this is frustrating, or oh, here comes a new symptom that I hadn't even thought about, for me, my bigger mindset is, well, A, empowerment, B, let's take action, let's get, let's do something about this, and then C, just like, okay, even if it's a challenge, it's a privilege to be in that space to have that challenge.
Right. I'm so sorry to hear that you lost your mom at such a young age, but it's also incredibly inspiring to hear that you are honoring her memory and living your life in such an optimistic, and not only just an optimistic way, but taking on healing for yourself and sharing ways of healing for others and caring for others. I think that's so important because we need people to support us. We need people there for us to guide us. And health coaches who are in tune with the menopausal process is key right now, because I know we love doctors. I love doctors. I depend on them, but we know that they too are also learning how to support women in menopause. And I think a lot of coaches have taken on that role, that knowledgeable role, even prior to a lot of doctors doing so. So, yeah, thank you for that. And I'm sure your mom's looking down, smiling, going,
Thank
"Go, girl."
you. Yeah, and it's a really exciting time. I know both of us feel really energized
Mm,
by the amount of really helpful, clear information more doctors are getting.
yeah.
Very knowledgeable in a way that even like a year or two ago I was not hearing and seeing through my clients. And it's so interesting too because after I finished my master's degree, I was trained as a hormone cure coach with Dr. Sarah
Mm,
Gottfried. And
mm,
so I really got to do a deep dive around hormones. So I've been supporting women through nutrition, lifestyle, supplements, exercise, stress management, sleep support for years, for almost a decade. And I just feel like the amount of information that I have empowered myself around, even in the last year or two, is exponentially growing, right? In
mm,
terms of um, how to best empower my clients so that they can empower themselves and get the support that they need. And of course, I love where I can come in, because even if someone goes on menopausal hormone treatment or HRT or whatever path they decide to do, we still have all the things we need to do, which I know we'll talk about, but we still got to sleep every night. We still got to eat a couple times a day. We still got to move our bodies joyfully. We still got to make sure we're drinking our water. We still, right? It's all these
Yeah.
things that we need to do. And I know we'll get a chance to talk about this more, but without feeling like, oh, great, now I have 12 more things on my to-do list, right? Because I think that's the other part of
Yeah.
supporting perimenopausal and menopausal women, is how do we do this in a way that is in alignment with our goals, and that we start to create some patterns and ease, so we're not feeling extra stress and burden for all the things we need to do to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I totally agree. Stress, we'll get back to that because we want to talk about stress, how to alleviate it, how to manage it, because it's a big deal. But before we talk about stress, let's talk a little bit about whole life nourishment and what does that mean and how can one approach healing utilizing this concept of whole life nourishment.
Mm. Dixie, I'm gonna have you record you saying that over and over again, because you are saying it in the exact way that I want my clients to embody it. You're actually just, I could feel you getting it before I even had a chance to explain it. So what I realize, so I'm the founder of Whole Life Nourishment and the creator of the program, because what I realized in years of working with clients one on one, it's like, what are the things that I am talking about over and over and over with clients? And yes, food and nutrition is so important. We are what we eat. We know food is medicine, right? But it's all those other pieces that I was talking about. We need to make sure we're getting our sleep and our rest. We need to make sure we're moving our bodies joyfully. I'm a big fan of joyful movement. And we also know that there's the social, emotional, spiritual aspects of our health and well being. So I talk about connection to self, connection to others, mindset, mission, and purpose. So it's really understanding that when we think about our health and well being, it's really looking at the whole person and all aspects of our health and well being. And then to make that happen is the piece of the puzzle, which is the schedule, routines, habits, and rituals, so that this is just our lifestyle. This is just what we are doing to support our overall health and well-being. And we're human. We're humans humaning, right? There's times where one thing might be a little bit more on our radar than another thing. One thing might be really automated and really kind of locked in a step, and something else might be getting our attention and our intention at various different times. But I really love this model to support and celebrate what we are doing well, and then to also nourish the areas that might need just a little bit more love and attention. And I love all the research coming out about the blue zones. Are you familiar with the blue zones, Dixie?
I love the blue zones. I even I have a long story about how I believed I was raised in a blue zone where my grandmother lives. She's going to be 90 this year. And I swear it's a blue zone based on the lifestyle. Yeah, but that's another
Yeah.
story. Love
Ooh,
it, love it,
I
love it.
want I want to hear that story. So because I love, when I'm working with my clients, when we're on their path together, so much is about this longevity, and not just longevity, but being healthy into our 90s and beyond. And so what I love about blue zones is, yeah, of course, again, it's the food and nutrition, but it's all those lifestyle pieces that you were talking about, that community and connection, time to rest and connect, time to be in nature. So every time I read about blue zones, I just love it, because it affirms what I was already seeing and doing with whole life nourishment, and they just parallel each other so beautifully. So I always like to bring that piece in as well.
I love it. I think it's so super important for people to really take a holistic approach. It's not just about the supplements. It's not
Right.
just about the exercise. It's not just about the spiritual component. You have to bring them all together. Create the schedule, like you said, the rituals around all of them and incorporate them into your lives. It's key. I know here in the United States, we live a very different lifestyle, and there are a lot of different environmental factors that contribute to our well being, as opposed to all of the blue zones that are outside of the country. But I'm like, we've got one right there in Loma Linda. And if we can take a page out of their book, it's a lot about community care. It's a lot about rest. It's a lot about socialization and activity, mowing the lawn, walking the dog, and all of those great areas. So I'm so thrilled to see that you're bringing this into your work, because I'm a huge believer of all of those components and how they attribute to longevity, but not just longevity, it's like vitality. Because in the event
Yes.
that we have longevity, we want it to be accompanied by vitality, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, it is really why I set up Whole Life Nourishment as a group program,
Yeah.
because it is that community care. It
Mhm.
is us supporting and uplifting each other. And to just not, and this is so true with perimenopause and menopause. I know this is why you have this podcast.
Mhm.
Is I'm getting chills to think about it. Is just to not feel alone. So often in our health and wellness journey, we can just feel like we're the only ones feeling this way. We're the only ones
Mhm.
having these questions or having these challenges, and to come together. And even if in a group, people have different things that are coming up for them, just to feel like, oh, hey, we're all in this together, and we're all here to support each other, and we're all here to be inspired by each other. I just think it's so important.
Yeah.
Whether it's in a formal way like what I do with Whole Life Nourishment, or just in our own communities and our own neighborhoods and our own friend groups, which I think we'll get a chance to talk about too. So
Absolutely, absolutely. And whatever level we're able to, I think it is impactful. So let's talk a little bit about one of the factors that causes illness, stress. And I know you are an expert in the area of stress management. And stress is one of those areas that causes additional burdens for a woman going through perimenopause and menopause as our bodies change. Talk to us about stress, the hormones related to it, what we can do to circumvent it, all the stuff.
beautiful. Yeah, I love talking about this because I it's cortisol, right, which is one of our stress hormones, is, I feel like, a missing piece that doesn't get talked about enough, especially for women, especially in perimenopause and menopause. And it's, again, to honor that it is impacting our bodies differently than it did, exactly like you said, in our 20s and our 30s, versus it's different than how it might be impacting men. The one thing I like to say is that cortisol is not a bad thing, right? And
Mhm.
cortisol is good. It does allow us to survive, right? So cortisol is what kicks in to help us do the fight or flight or freeze. It was designed to help us stay alive. But the thing about cortisol is that it was meant to be short term. The
Mhm.
lion jumps out, right? And then we have a whole series of physiological effects. So it's there to protect us. So things like our heart rate increases, our body starts to prioritize different things. So things start to shut down in that moment, right? So long term immune support shuts down. If you're still a fertile person, fertility shuts down, digestion shuts down. And my joke is, your body isn't worried about digesting your lunch if you're about to become lunch,
Yes.
right? And you're not worried about future generations if you're like, I need to survive in this moment. And we're also not worried about long-term immune health. Your body's just like, we need to make sure we get away from this lion, right? We need to make sure we can run. And that's why our blood sugar also spikes too, because your body's like, ooh, give it all the resources so we can run away and get up the tree. If we were back in that scenario, it's over pretty quickly, right? We are either safe and up the tree and the lion gives up, or we're lunch. It doesn't go on for days and days and days. There's not 20 lions jumping out at us, right? And so this mechanism that our bodies develop to help us survive, what we would then shift very quickly back down into is that parasympathetic rest and digest state. And so there's this natural, like, cortisol goes up. We have that fight, flight, or freeze. Of course, there's a fourth one that's often talked about with women, which is the fawn, which we could get into. And then we go back to that parasympathetic mode. What I see in modern society is that, okay, most of us are not facing lions, but it's that email, it's that traffic, it's that to-do list, it's that phone call coming in, it's a frustrating boss, it's money stress, it's social injustice stress, right? It's this chronic stress that every single time these lions are jumping out 50 times a day, and our poor bodies don't know the difference. And so what I find is that in our modern world, we have to actively be bringing ourselves back to that parasympathetic state, back to that rest and digest state, so that we're bringing that cortisol back down, so that we're making sure our digestion is doing well, our hormones are doing well, our immune health is doing well. Unfortunately, stress is also very inflammatory. So when we look at kind of root causes of most of our big diseases, at the root is inflammation. And so the connection between stress and inflammation. So then now let's add to it perimenopause and menopause. So the things that I see that happen for a lot of women is symptomatically, there's a couple different things. So this is where we get things like the hot flashes. So many women who experience hot flashes, do you see a correlation between stress and a hot flash? I see things like disrupted sleep. So again, in perimenopause and menopause, we're already having sleep disruption for many of us. And then of course the stress adds to it. Dysregulated blood sugar. So I do a lot around blood sugar balance and keeping our blood sugar nice and stable, keeping us out of that pre-diabetes state, keeping our sugars nice and even. But stress raises that. So we want to think about stress in a different way, and managing our cortisol. It can start to affect things like our thyroid. So there might be nothing wrong with your thyroid, but there's this whole HPA axis where the cortisol is now affecting your thyroid and stressing out your thyroid. There are factors around belly weight, right? So again, I'm a believer in health at every size. I'm not about diets, but sometimes we're like, wait, what's this fluffy stuff coming on here? And there is a connection between cortisol and belly weight. Digestive issues as well. So there's a lot of digestive changes that happen in perimenopause and menopause. Our hormones have a whole connection to our digestive health and well-being, and stress also affects our digestive health and well-being. So for those who have digestive issues, they've probably seen it their whole lives, right? I feel stressed, I get a stomach ache, or my bowel movements aren't as great. And I see a lot with my clients that never had digestive issues, that all of a sudden they are having digestive issues as they go through perimenopause and menopause, and stress can be a factor with that. Mood issues, of course, right? That can affect the cortisol can sort of impact our mindset. It can impact our mood and our emotional health. And then lastly, things like cardiovascular health. So I'm focusing a lot with my perimenopausal and menopausal clients on, again, for that longevity, a big part of it is our heart, is making sure our heart is healthy and lasts a long, long time. And so the impact of cortisol and like high blood pressure and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways it can manifest, and it can manifest differently for everybody. Now, I'm going to pause here, Dixie, because I'm like thinking about these listeners going, okay, great. Thank you. You just gave me 12 other things to feel stressed about now. So the thing that I love to point out, the first thing I always want to say is we don't want to feel stress about our stress. And I almost don't even like to use the word stress management, because then all our brain is hearing is stress, right? Even if we're trying to manage our stress. So, really like to talk about, like, how do we bring more calm into our lives? How do we bring more ease into our lives? How do we bring more rest into our lives? How do we, move that lever back down? Sometimes we just need a visual image of like, hey, let's move that lever. Let's move that lever back down. The other thing that I see too, that I just always like to point out is that in perimenopause and menopause, cortisol can also become dysregulated. So again, cortisol is not a bad thing. It starts to rise in the morning. It's what gets us out of bed. It gets us going. So again, it's not a bad thing. We just want it to follow the natural cycle. And so sometimes in menopausal women, I'll see elevated cortisol at night. And so folks are getting kind of that second wind, and then they have a hard time falling asleep, and their brain is on like overdrive. So there's definitely some things that we can do there. Or if we've been experiencing chronic stress for years and we've been pushing, like my stomach hurts even just saying pushing. If we've been pushing, we can start to get some dysregulated cortisol where we go to push and it's like there's no gas in the tank. So again, kind of what we were talking about, like with whole life nourishment, a big part of what I love to do is like, hey, let's fill up those tanks again. Let's replenish our resources. Let's make sure we're not hitting bottom every single time, because then we can kind of navigate just, life stressors are going to happen, but we can navigate those with more almost like cushion, if you want to kind of visualize that piece. And so I've got some strategies and ideas, but I always want to just point out, like, I don't want us to feel stressed about the stress. We want to focus on action and proactivity. So I just
Absolutely.
wanted to
Yeah,
name that.
yeah. No, it's important that you said that, because when you started talking about cortisol and all of the different aspects of our lives that can contribute to its dysregulation, the first thing I started thinking about is, yeah, but so many perimenopausal and postmenopausal women are stressed about the symptoms that they experience. So that's adding stress burden on top of the stress that they're already feeling. So it's like a cascade, and it can be
That's
so
exactly right.
overwhelming if they don't know how to navigate, or if they don't know how to, like you said, bring calm into their lives.
hmm Yeah, and exactly right. Like, just as we can have positive feedback loops, right, where we start to do one thing and it allows us to have more energy to do more things, we can kind of get stuck in a quote unquote negative feedback loop, right? So, for example, we might be feeling stress. We have the dysregulated stress. It's affecting our sleep. The next day, we're tired. So we're going for the caffeine and extra caffeine, and now that's putting stress on our body. We get the sugar crash in the afternoon, so we're eating the sugar, and then the cycle just kind of continues all over again. So it's really I like starting, and this is again where like the habit change and bringing it into routine and ritual. Everybody's going to have their different starting place, but I like the kind of idea of the habit stacking. Like, what's the thing that's going to lead to like make all the other things that much easier, right?
Mhm.
So if it is supporting the sleep first, let's get that sleep managed so that everything else can kind of follow from there, just as an example, so
Mhm.
that we're not feeling like we have 12 things to do. It's like we have one thing that we're focusing on.
Got it. Love it. So it's like easing in and easing out. So you bring in, ease in with the things that are going to work, and then you slowly ease the things out that are not going to work. So as not to
Right.
put additional stress and burden on the body, right?
Right, exactly. And I think we're all, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody, but so many people in this modern world, there's a lot to pay attention to. There's a
Mhm.
lot with our communities, with our families, with our relationships. As you know, many perimenopausal and menopausal women are they've got elderly parents they might be thinking about. They have children that they're thinking about. So we really want to do the take even just the smallest. I'm a big fan of also like teeny tiny habits. So even just taking the smallest bit of time for ourselves to bring, if you need to like visualize bringing that cortisol back down, because I think if we tell women, okay, you're going to need to take all these supplements and do these 12 things, and you need to exercise, well, I don't think people need to exercise X amount of time, but like we start putting all these other things in the to-do list, and actually that's also too where the mindset piece comes in so much, because, for example, so I love moving my body. I've just always have loved moving my body, but I've gone through my own challenges. Like, I remember I hit a patch in my mid 30s where I was just feeling so overwhelmed. I was a teacher. I was working full time. In hindsight, I look back, I was like, my tank was on empty. I was mid 30s, and it's not it's not a shocker that within a couple of years I got sick, right? Like there were some signs already that I was very burned out, and I remember I didn't even want to exercise. I didn't feel like I had the time or the energy, which was for me a very big sign. And I'm bringing it full circle because now when I think about moving my body, it's not about like what I look like in a dress. I mean, I want to keep my muscle mass because I know we need to, work our bones and think about our muscles. But really, for me, it's for my mental health. My walk is my mental health walk, right? My dance is my mental health dance. It's where I'm in community. It's where I'm in connection. It's where I'm in nature. So it's even something like exercise and movement, which I've prioritized for much of my life. Like even how I'm thinking about it is really, really different. And while I'm on the note of exercise, this is also to bring it back to the cortisol, where pushing is not great, right? So listening to our bodies, doing something lighter on the day, maybe where our body needs rest. Maybe we do some yin yoga, or maybe we do some stretching, or we take a gentle walk. It's really about honoring our bodies on a day-to-day basis, exactly where they're at, and not putting any should on top of that. Like I should go do the spin class. Well, if you go do that spin class and you feel horrible afterwards and you feel completely drained, let's listen to our body and see what it's trying to tell us. Or I'll have a client say, I don't want to run. Is that okay? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, you don't have to run ever. Like, if you want to run, great. If it feels good to run, great. But like, let's get you walking. Let's get you dancing. Let's get you lifting weights. Like, let's do the things. And again, bringing in that joy. That joy, not everybody loves to move their bodies, but again, like if it's food, bringing in the joy into the color on our plate or the flavors on our plate. If it's about our connection to others, who lifts us up, who do we feel like fills our cup afterwards. So again, I'm really always trying to, I find it easier to add than to take away. And where do we want to start with the easy ads?
Yeah, so important. I think that, when people hear this, a lot of times, some people, they're like, oh my God, that's overwhelming. That's too
Mhm.
much. Where do I begin? Where do I start? So, how about you share with us some key things that people can do to bring calm into their lives? Because I'm taking into consideration what you said about saying manage stress and manage cortisol. How can we bring more calm into our lives so that we are not constantly in fight or flight, and we can spend more time resting and repairing and let the body get an opportunity to do what it does when it's supposed to do it?
So one of my favorite suggestions, because almost everybody can do this now, some bodies can't, but almost all bodies can do this, and it doesn't require a lot of time. It's a yoga move, but you don't have to call it yoga. It's when we elevate our legs above our heart, we're putting our body into that parasympathetic mode. And so I love anything where we can embody it, because that way we're like doing something, but we get to lay on the floor, we get to put our legs up, and even just for 2 minutes. So again, like we can get in this thought of like, oh, I need to go to an hour-long yoga class to help me manage my stress. Well, if you want to and you can, great. But how about 2 minutes lying on your back, putting your legs up? If you've got a wall, you can put your legs all the way flush against the wall, and that's a really nice back of the leg stretch. That doesn't feel comfortable, you can put it up on a couch, or your legs up on a chair, or legs up on the bed. I find too, because I'm on my computer a lot, as most of us are, right? We kind of get the hunch shoulder forward.
Yeah.
So just to lie down with our backs being supported by the floor, just that is such a good feeling. It's also an open-hearted pose. So we, again, if we think back to that lion, when in nature would you be lying down, right, with your legs elevated? Like you would only do that if you were completely safe. So what I write, and I don't know about you, but like it's going to take me a minute to get out of that pose. Like if a lion all of a sudden jumped in,
Exactly.
right? I've got to, and it's not a vigilant pose. We're not like keeping our eye out for the next danger. So without having to use our minds, we're telling every cell in my body, I am safe, I'm okay, I can relax. Now, I do want to say, because a lot of my work is very trauma informed, for some people that doesn't feel safe, right? Sometimes when we get into a pose that feels safe, for some people it doesn't feel safe. So listen to your own body cues, but for most of us it's going to be a relaxing pose. Close the door if you need to close the door. Put a pillow on your tummy if you need to put a pillow on your tummy, if you need something that makes you feel safer. I like to also combine that with something else really simple, is bringing in an essential oil. So something like lavender or orange or lemon, bringing in scent, because again, the scent bypasses the language part of our brain. So you and I don't have time to get into all the parts of our brain, but it's a different part of our brain that's reacting to the stress. And then we get our front part of our brain talky, right? And then we get the like judgment brain going like, what's wrong with you? Why are you so stressed, right? Then we get the overwhelm, like, I don't even know what to do. I'm not going to do anything. Well, when we take a nice scent of an herb or of lemon or of lavender, something that's calming, it bypasses that language part. And we're just like, again, we're bringing ourselves down. So I like to combine those two. And again, 2 minutes in that pose. You don't have to be there for a half an hour. You don't have to do an hour
Right.
yoga, something small and simple. I know a lot of people too, the meditation apps are really, really wonderful. So even if you don't have a meditation practice, or you're like, I can't meditate every day for 30 minutes, 2 minutes. What happens if we just breathe deeply for 2 minutes? I've even done with clients, what happens if we just take 3 slow, deep breaths together? It feels like an eternity.
Mm.
So I want to honor that not all of us have, a lot of extra time and resources in our day. So how can we bring in, I heard it referred to once as like a minute vacation. How can we bring in these like little mini moments? And I think ultimately, probably for our bodies, being thoughtful about little mini moments throughout the day is probably going to be better for our overall health and well-being than like go for 9 months out of the year and then you take a 2 week vacation.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's it's really about those little micro things. And if I'm suggesting those and you're like, Michelle, I don't want to lay on the floor, I don't want to do essential oils, right? We all have our thing. It could be, as you were saying, pet your animal, right? We have amazing evidence on how being with our pets can lower our stress response. It brings us back to our breathing. If you've got a cat, you got a dog, you got a hamster, go pet them. If you've got a garden, go play in your garden for a minute. If you've got nature near you, just staring at nature. In fact, even if you don't have nature near you, they've done studies where just looking at a beautiful image brings our body into that healthy state again. So I'm all about making things simple. If you have a long commute, right? Like I'm really lucky, Dixie. I acknowledge that. Like I'm really lucky. I work from home. I get to be in my cozy home space, right? That is a privilege, and not everybody has that. So if someone has a commute, well, put on the relaxing music during the commute. Put in the things that lift your spirit on the commute, so that even in something that might be a little bit more of a stressful moment, what are you doing to make sure you use that commute time to again like fill your cup up? So it's finding those little micro moments.
Right. I totally appreciate the idea of micro moments. I think that's where the magic is, in those moments that can compound. The more you do them, the more results that you can get, as opposed to thinking of the huge things that we want to do that sometimes are difficult and then we never follow through. But the little
That's exactly
things,
right.
yeah, the little things. And I love it. I have a group that I share information in, and it's called Petite Pause. And it really is about taking petite pauses throughout the day. I learned this when my very first Qigong instructor taught me about taking petite pauses. And I thought it was just like, oh my God, it's so great. And I've had to come back to it so many times throughout my years. I still do. And so, like, again, micro moments, kind of the same thing, taking these moments out of your day to infuse some relaxation, restful, parasympathetic inducing activities for the body that
Yeah.
can alleviate the stress.
Yep. I love the petite pause. I think that's so beautiful. And I think, it's exactly it. And we, there's such a big part. I think this is cultural, but there's such a big part of our culture that's like the go big or go home, right? The all or nothing. And for 99% of us, that is not going to lead to success.
Exactly.
That is not going to lead to health and well-being. And so I have to share, because this is one of my favorite newer studies. I don't know if you saw this, but they did this study where they measured muscle growth and muscle mass by doing 3 arm curls a week.
Mm.
Not 3 times, like not for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, 3 arm curls a week. And what I love about it, it was first based on a study out of Japan where they did 5 and they saw muscle mass grow from just 5 arm curls a week. And they're like, well, what happens if it's only 3? And so I love this as an example. It's, I kind of think like, what's the 3 arm curl? What's the teeniest, tiniest thing that we can do to support our health and well-being, where we get to feel like, I got to win. I did something for my health and well-being here. I get to pat myself on the back. I get my 5 gold stars. And then I find for most of us that brings more of the energy to then be like, oh, what other little thing might I want to add? Or, hey, I'm doing 3 arm curls. I might as well do 10 arm curls since I'm here anyway. But we set that it's an interesting game of setting up expectations.
Yeah.
And I think especially in perimenopause and menopause, it doesn't mean like lowering our expectations. It's
Mhm.
like go big if you want to go big. That's exciting, and it's good to have that mountaintop goal. But even someone who is trekking up to the top of the Himalayas, it's the day by day, it's the moment by moment, it's the pausing and the resting, right? Someone doesn't scale, Mount Kilimanjaro well, I guess some people do, but most of us are not going to scale a mountain in a day, right? It's working in the plan, it's working in the pauses, it's working in the rest, it's working in the nourishment, and it's even bringing in people to be our guide and our support, along the journey. So
Yeah. And we have to keep in mind, even the person who climbs Kilimanjaro did it over many years of pausing. So they had a lot of pauses before they actually got to the summit. So yeah,
there's exactly that too.
yeah,
There's
yeah. We're just
exactly
seeing
that
the
too.
the final result of all those many pauses that it took to get them there. So that's how we have to look at our well-being. Those micro moments, like you said, are what really matters and lays the foundation. What can women who are going through menopause, perimenopause, and postmenopause do to manage some of the stressors of the actual symptoms? Because I mean, there's other stress, and then there's stress of dealing with the actual symptoms that they are experiencing.
So, I think this is again where looking at like whole life nourishment is a good place to start, and then picking the one thing of where we want to, where celebrating what is going well, what we are doing, and then pick that one thing. So, I would say the big ones that I see are sleep, are managing our food and nutrition, make sure we're getting what our body needs throughout the day. Typically, for a lot of us, it's making sure we're getting the protein and the healthy fats and the fiber from the vegetables, and making sure we're not skipping meals, and that we're, really truly nourishing our food. I think you doing what you need to do to get the sleep support going. And again, some of that is ritual and routines, and some of that might be doing something gentle, even like magnesium at night. Magnesium is very calming. It's calming for the body. It's really can be really helpful for sleep. So even something simple like magnesium at night can really help with the stress levels. I would say in terms of some of these other symptoms too, is that we want the lifestyle and the nutrition piece to go along with, if it feels right for that person, whatever sort of hormonal support might make sense for that person, where they are, their body, because those are going to work together as well. Reducing inflammation, right? So I think when we're in a state of inflammation, our body is feeling kind of stressed out, like already at a set point. So what can we do to make sure that we are, again, eating foods that nourish our body, that we are. The other one, honestly, Dixie, that I will say is I think so important is being in connection, because again, when we feel isolated, when we feel alone, when we feel like we're navigating this as a solo journey, I think that just contributes to the overwhelm. So finding a practitioner or a partner or a group or a podcast or whatever you need to be like, ooh, they're speaking to me, and they get it, and I'm not alone in this, and there is a way through. Because I think that's the other important thing that most people need to hear, that there is a path, there is a way, and it's a crooked path. It may not be a straight arrow, but there are these ways to navigate it. So those are typically the ones. But again, it kind of depends, because everybody's menopausal journey is a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah. But hence the reason this information is important, because you never know who you will reach and touch and who's going to resonate with what you're saying. So, amplifying these messages and this type of educational resource to as many people as we can is super important. Because, like you said, somebody may be listening to a podcast and go, oh, wow. Oh, I just need to try that breathing technique. I need to try those micro moments, right? And that may work. So, different strokes for different folks. However, we do know that it is a combination of many different things that are going to work, not just the supplements, not just the exercise,
Right.
not just the food, right?
Right. That's exactly it. Exactly it. And I think really that's where that mindset piece comes in too, to not feel like they're all separate things, right?
Right.
When we think about holistic health and we think about ourselves as whole
Mhm.
people, that even with menopause, right? Like menopause is not just one thing. And if we're looking at what do we want to do to be thriving? What do we want to do to feel vital? What do we want to do to feel energetic? What do we want to do to feel grounded and calm? And we think about those pieces all together. And honestly, too, there's some days, like I think a lot of permission, permission to rest,
Mhm.
permission to say no, permission to say not today, permission to speak up when we need to speak up. I think so much about this journey is about permission. And I think also making sure that we're not um, adding to that cortisol and that stress by having, I guess it's kind of like being mindful of societal expectations of what something quote unquote should be or should look like or should feel like, and really kind of stepping into our own truth and our own power. Like, what do we want for our life? What do we want for our well-being? And again, like tapping into our own body wisdom. And to do that, we know does take time to get quiet and listen to ourselves. And I think that's kind of the bigger piece to the puzzle.
Like you said, tap into the wisdom of your body and understand what works for you, because one person's pain may be somebody else's path. So, again, that's where the awareness comes in. And like you said, the mindfulness and tapping into your own wisdom, super powerful stuff. And that's an important part of the step. As a matter of fact, I think it's the first thing that we should be doing, really tapping in. Like, who am I and what is good for me, what works for me, and what doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so much about the word, like the word alignment always comes up for me,
Mhm,
what feels
mhm.
an alignment for me,
Right, right.
because honestly, even what I thought I might want to do in perimenopause and menopause 6 years ago is different than what I'm considering now. And I love bringing, like, if we have that center of alignment, we're gonna waver, but when we come back to like what is feels aligned for me. And I think the other thing is to shift from overwhelm into curiosity. That can be a helpful shift. And then just that compassionate awareness. I think that's the other thing I just want to like really bring home to all the people listening is deep, deep, deep compassion for yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. Like we even were as we're talking about
Yeah.
body wisdom, that body wisdom could be like, I don't know and I need support, right? Like that's a body wisdom, right? Like it doesn't have to be like we have to have all the answers. And I work with a lot of women who are really sharp, really smart, used to figuring things out, used to solving problems, used to getting their SHIT done, right? And to all of a sudden be in a space where they need to listen, to have compassion, to even get curious about what might be a better thing that's in alignment for them. It is when we talk about that health journey, it is that bigger picture of the journey. So
And asking for help, right? It's
yep,
okay to ask for help. You deserve to feel well. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, Michelle, let's jump into self care rituals that you currently utilize to support your health and your well being during this menopausal, perimenopausal stage that you are navigating.
Yeah, I want to just say, Dixie, I really appreciated this question. I took my time really thinking about it, and I thought, what is it? Like, what is it that I'm doing? And so, I would say for me right now, as I mentioned, for my mental and physical health, movement is such a foundation. I dance a couple times a week in community. I walk in nature with friends. I take hikes, and for me, it has completely shifted its importance. It's where I feel
Mm.
clear. I feel calm. I feel connected. I feel myself. I really truly feel myself. The other fun thing that I love, Dixie, so I've been going to the same dance studio for 13 years. So when I first started there, I was in my 30s. I am now almost 50. And sometimes I'm the oldest person in the room. And I love it because I also love, like, I do what my body needs to do. So for example, when I'm in my weights class, I don't do push-ups on the floor. I do them on the wall, right? Or I am always adapting to listen to my body. Or if there's a day where I can just tell, like, I need to take it easy today, I don't push. And so I love it for me that I'm in a space where that is 100% honored and accepted. But I also love modeling it if anybody is paying attention. I mean, maybe they're not paying attention and nobody cares anyway, but I love being I love showing myself and demonstrating to others if they want to pay attention, like we get to show up exactly as we are. So I would say movement for me is foundational. As I mentioned, connection with others. So I have community that I meet with once a week. That is a big part of my spiritual community. I have friends that I am connecting with weekly. I'm oftentimes combining it with the movement and the nature. You know, connecting with folks like you, Dixie, right? Like colleagues and phenomenal women. I'm gonna steal from Maya Angelou here, like phenomenal women doing phenomenal things that just like that inspires me. Like I get so fired up. So that's, I mean, I know it's a funny thing to talk about self-care, but just to feel like we're doing something positive for this planet, those kind of things fill my cup up. And then the last one, which we've talked about a lot, is that permission to rest. And you're probably familiar with Trisha Hershey and the nap ministry, like really like elevating rest to the resistance level, that it's a radical act. It shouldn't be a radical act, right? But really embracing permission to rest in whatever way that looks like, and just really honoring what that looks like for me at this point in my life. So it was interesting to pause and really kind of think about it, because maybe the things that I would have thought, like, oh, my nutrition, like I'm all about my nutrition, but really the things that are deeply helping to support me in this time are those three things.
And it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it, like you are in awareness of what works and amplifies your productivity. And that's what people have to do. Like, what works? What's going to amplify my productivity? What's going to amplify my compassion and my love and my purpose and my passion and all of those things? And if it's rest, walking, dancing, then do those things.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Super,
Yeah.
super important. Before we go, I have a hypothetical question for you. So here you go. If you were to advocate for policy changes in the workplace to better support menopausal employees, what specific policies would you focus on? and why?
I also loved this question, and I decided to pose it to my social media because I was like, I want to hear what they have to say. And overwhelmingly, it was temperature control in the workplace.
Oh,
It was all about do not have one single thermometer, do not overheat this place, do not, like hot, cold, whatever, over and over and over again. I have a lot of friends who are teachers. If a lot of classrooms, you do not get to control the temperature in your classroom, but it is either boiling or freezing, right? I mean, that is a whole other issue. But even just in corporate workspaces, that was what came up again and again and again. The other one was, and related to it, is a space and a place in the workspace to step away, to have a quiet space. And listen, this is one of those things that benefits all people, not just perimenopausal and menopausal people, right? Like everyone, we need a space to just like close a door, be in a comfy space, turn off the lights, not be bothered, even if it's just for a few minutes. So that was another one. And that's not that hard to do in a workspace. It's
not at all.
really, these are things that we can implement right away, even if we can't overhaul the overhaul heating and cooling system,
I know.
right? There are these things, and even permission to have personal fans or permission to have personal heaters, these things that really taking into consideration the human people that are in that office. I think could be really small steps that make people feel more comfortable on a daily basis. So I appreciated the question, and I loved getting the feedback.
I absolutely love the response because I think fans just it's so simple, such a simple thing, right?
So
If only the
simple.
people will listen.
Yep.
So I'm thinking of maybe a cooling room, right?
Exactly.
Just a
No.
cooling room.
Yep,
Yes, yeah,
a
yeah,
room
love
that
it.
just is set at, a nice like 62 degrees or
Right, right,
whatever, right?
exactly,
That's just like,
exactly.
right? Yeah, no, I think there's lots of ways. And I will just say in general, you know, again, that permission word, if someone needs to come in later because their sleep is disrupted, or, you know, for many women when they're going through perimenopause have very heavy periods and they're needing to go to the bathroom a lot, like whatever it is, like these really practical needs that
Yeah,
need to
yeah,
be honored, right? Because
yeah.
we are not robots.
Yes, exactly. We are not
We are
robots.
not robots. We are, we have physical bodies going through all sorts of physical changes. And again, like this is one of those things where when we elevate it for this particular group, it's elevating it for everyone. I think that needs to be part of the message too, right? Because in our world, there can become this like, well, if they get this, then what do I get? It's like, no, 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 we're elevating this for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, and not only that, yeah, everybody. Guess what? You're gonna get here eventually, and so we're paving a path for you. So when
Right.
you get to this point, it's gonna be here waiting for you. So come
Absolutely.
on, support us in the work because our work will be to your benefit at some point. But we can talk all day about that and all of the changes that need to happen in the workplace. Before you leave, please share with us anything that you're working on, where we can reach you, how we can stay connected with you.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Dixie. So, really easy to find me. My website is Health Coach Michelle, Michelle. That's my Instagram handle. That's my Facebook page. I'm also on LinkedIn. So there's lots of different ways to connect with me. Whole life nourishment is my passion. It's my way of really doing the work that making the difference that I want to see and supporting people so that they can go out there and do the amazing work that they want to do. So it's really designed for individuals, but it works really lovely in a workplace situation as a
Mm.
wellness program. And then if folks are curious about whole life nourishment, they go to my website. I've got the whole life nourishment wellness wheel. It's really lovely. There's a nice little step by step to lead you through the process to do a kind of self assessment around what is being nourished in your life and where you want to give a little bit of extra nourishment. So that that is free on my website. And so yeah, those are the ways that people can stay connected with me. And I of course see clients one on one. And I think, as you talked about, for me personally, amplifying my own self-care so that I can show up the way that I want to show up, that's also my bigger desire, is to amplify my impact so that just like what you're doing here too, Dixie, that we can be really serving as many people as possible.
Yeah, love it. Thank you so much. There are 1 billion women in the world who will be experiencing menopause by 2025. That's according to Forbes. So, guess what? The work that you're doing, the work that we're all doing collectively, is making a difference because voices are starting to create a trickle effect around the world and people are feeling much more confident. So, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
being a light and for sharing your resources, your story with us. I really appreciate it. And I know the listeners would love what you shared with us today. So thank you.
Thank you, Dixie.
You are welcome. Listeners, thank you for tuning in, leaning into this podcast. I will see you next time. Let's perimenopause and prosper.